My name is Allison. I'm 37 years old, and this is the story of how the people I loved most, my own parents, taught me the hardest lesson about loyalty, pride, and poetic justice. Before I start, if you love real life, inspired stories of betrayal, revenge, and emotional redemption, make sure to subscribe to the channel and stay with me till the end, because this one will leave you stunned. I grew up in a modest family. My parents weren't rich, but they were proud. They raised my younger sister, Lily, and me to believe that family came before everything. Before career, comfort, or even self-respect sometimes. For years I believed that. I gave them everything, time, money, even dreams I once had for myself. When I got my first job at 23, I remember how proud they looked. My mom told every neighbor, "Allison's the one holding this family together now." It wasn't just praise, it was a declaration, a reminder of responsibility. And I accepted it. Every extra hour at work, every penny I saved was for family. But over the years I started to notice something, a pattern I ignored for too long. Lily could do no wrong. She was the golden child. Carefree, funny, always broke but never blamed. Every mistake she made was met with understanding, while my smallest choices were dissected, criticized, and discussed at family gatherings. When she failed college the first time, my parents blamed her professors. When I missed one family dinner because of a work deadline, I was too proud to be their daughter. Still I kept giving. Because that's what good daughters do. By the time I was 32, I had built a stable career in real estate management. I managed rental properties and handled investment portfolios for clients, work that gave me both comfort and insight into how people used money. When my parents' old home started to crumble, literally with leaks, cracked walls, and broken tiles, I decided to do something. Something that, in my heart, felt right. I told them, "I'm going to build you a new house." The joy on their faces made me believe I was finally enough. Dad hugged me. Mom cried. "Lily." She just smirked and said, "Wow, finally, our Allison's doing something impressive." I laughed it off. But that sentence stayed with me longer than it should have. Over the next few months, I found a beautiful 3-bedroom property on the edge of town. Freshly built, spacious, with a garden that caught sunlight like gold. The rent was reasonable, but I didn't tell them it was rented. I wanted them to feel secure, proud. Even if it was temporary. So I told them it was theirs. They moved in within a week. I furnished the place, paid the deposit, and signed a 2-year lease in my name. Every month, the rent left my account quietly, and they enjoyed the illusion of ownership loudly. And honestly, seeing them happy made it worth it. Until Lily moved back in. Started small. She said she was just visiting after another failed relationship. My parents welcomed her, of course. Within a month, she had redecorated the guest room, my old room, and started making comments like, "I love what we did with our house." I ignored it. I had bigger things to worry about. But soon I noticed a shift. When I visited, I wasn't home anymore. I was a guest. If I sat in the living room, Mom would sigh dramatically, saying, "Lily likes to rest there after her long day. Could you sit at the dining table instead?" I brushed it off. Family peace, I told myself, is worth more than pride. Then one Saturday morning I got a call. "Allison," Mom said, her voice oddly formal. "Your father and I need to talk to you." When I arrived, Lily was lounging on the couch, scrolling through her phone, barely looking at me. Dad cleared his throat. "It's about the house," he began. "You've been busy, and Lily needs more space now that she's starting her new job. We've decided to give her your room." I stared at him, unsure I'd heard right. "My room? You mean the one I stay in when I visit?" He nodded. "You don't live here anymore. It only makes sense." Mom added, "You're an adult now, Allison. You have your own life. Let your sister have this one comfort." Lily smirked, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "Don't worry, sis. I'll take good care of your room." The laughter that followed felt like knives. Something inside me went cold. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just looked at them, the people I'd once believed I'd built a home for, and said quietly, "If that's what you want." Then I left. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at the lease contract in my drawer. Name, my signature, my payments. For years, I had let them believe I'd built them a house. But I hadn't. It was rented, under my control. And suddenly, that fact felt like a loaded weapon I hadn't realized I was holding. They thought they could kick me out. They thought they could humiliate me in a house that didn't even belong to them. Smiled. Sometimes silence isn't surrender. The strategy. And I had just remembered who really held the keys. After I left that day, I didn't speak to my parents for 2 weeks. Not because I was angry, though I was, but because I needed silence to think. Silence, I've learned, has a power that noise never does. It forces people to reveal who they really are when they think you've stepped away. I replayed every word, every look, every smirk that Lily gave me when my father announced that my room was now hers. I remembered how my mother's tone shifted from pride to dismissal the moment I wasn't providing something new for them. And as I sat in my quiet apartment, surrounded by the very peace they had traded for comfort, I realized something. I had built their illusion. I could take it away just as easily. But revenge, real revenge, should never be rushed. It should unfold like a calm storm, silent before it strikes. The following week, I logged into the rental portal. The lease renewal was coming up in a few months. Normally, I would have extended it automatically, but that night I hovered over the Do Not Renew option and smiled. Click. That was the first move. Few days later, my mom called. Allison, she began in that careful tone she used when she wanted something. Can you send your father the maintenance payment for the house this month? The landlord keeps messaging him. I laughed quietly. The landlord. She hesitated. Yes, the one you used when you built the house. I'll handle it, I said calmly. And I did, but not the way she expected. Instead of paying, I called the landlord directly, explained that I was the actual tenant, and arranged for the lease to end in 60 days. He understood immediately. I told him I'd take care of the notice myself. When I hung up, I stared at my reflection in the dark window. My face looked calm, but my heart was racing. This was it, the beginning. I didn't want to throw them out onto the street. That wasn't my goal. I wanted them to understand, to feel the weight of how easily the foundation of their pride could crumble, just like they'd made me feel disposable in that house. A few weeks later, I decided to visit, for the first time since the room incident. When I arrived, Lily was in the garden, filming herself on her phone. She'd turned the place into her personal stage. Fake plants, fairy lights, and captions about family luxury. I almost laughed. Inside, my parents were sitting together, drinking tea. The way my mother's eyes flickered when she saw me made it clear I was unexpected. Allison, you should have called, she said, pretending surprise. I just came to check how things are, I replied with a smile. Dad nodded awkwardly. Everything's fine. Your sister has been helping us organize the house. Oh! I glanced at Lily, who was now scrolling through pictures of herself on the couch that used to be mine. She said casually, Yeah, I just redecorated your room, well, my room now. I nodded slowly. Looks great. The way they relaxed after that moment, as if they'd won some silent competition, was almost satisfying. They had no idea they were sitting in a countdown. Weeks passed. I kept my distance, but occasionally I'd get texts from Mom. Mom, the water bill came late again. Mom, the landlord's office sent another message, can you please handle it? Mom, your dad says the garden needs fixing, please pay them this week. I replied each time with, I'll take care of it. And I did, just not in the way they imagined. One evening, exactly 2 weeks before the lease expired, I visited again. This time with my laptop and a soft smile. They greeted me warmly, or so they tried to. I could feel the unease behind their eyes. Maybe they thought I was still hurt. Maybe they believed time had softened me. It hadn't. It had sharpened me. We sat down at the dining table. The same one where, months ago, they'd told me I was too busy to live here anymore. Dad poured me tea. It's good to see you, Allison. Your mother made your favorite. I know, I interrupted gently. I came to talk about the house. The silence that followed was so sharp I could almost hear the clock ticking. Mom smiled nervously. Oh, don't worry about that. Everything's going great. Lily even talked about repainting. Leaned back. Actually, that's what I wanted to mention. You might want to hold off on the painting. The landlord's coming to inspect soon. Their faces went blank. Dad frowned. The landlord. Why would he need to inspect our house? Lily looked up, annoyed. What landlord? I looked directly at her and said, the one who owns the property you're living in. For a moment nobody spoke. My mom blinked. Dad's mouth opened but no words came out. Lily laughed, nervously. You're joking, right? Smiled. No, I never built this house. I rented it. Every piece of furniture, every wall you redecorated, every light you switched on. All under my name. My mother's cup clattered against the table. Allison, what are you saying? I'm saying, I continued, my tone calm and even. You might want to start packing. The lease ends next week. Lily's voice rose. You can't be serious. Dad slammed his hand on the table. You lied to us. I looked at him, eyes steady. No, I just let you believe what you wanted. You kicked me out of a room that was mine, in a house that was mine. You humiliated me in a home I paid for. So no, I didn't lie. I just stopped correcting you. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother started to cry softly. Dad stood frozen, staring at the floor. Lily was shaking, her anger caught between disbelief and guilt. I stood, picked up my coat, and headed toward the door. Before leaving, I turned back and said, I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing it so you finally understand what it feels like to be treated like you don't belong, in a place you built. Then I walked out. That night I received 10 missed calls. Then 20. By morning, my inbox was full of messages from Mom and Dad, pleading, apologizing, bargaining. I didn't respond. I sat by my window, sipping coffee, listening to the quiet hum of the city. For once, I felt something I hadn't in years, peace. It wasn't satisfaction. It wasn't joy. It was clarity. They had taken everything I gave for granted. And now they'd finally see the truth, that love without respect is just obligation disguised as family. The morning after I revealed the truth, my phone buzzed non-stop. Messages. Missed video requests. I let it ring. For years, I had been the one to fix everything. The one who sent money when the bills were due, who covered emergencies that were really just my parents' poor choices. But this time I stayed quiet. Silence was the new language I had learned to speak, and they were finally hearing it loud and clear. By noon, my mom finally sent a voice note. Her voice was shaky, tired, and almost pleading. Allison, please. We didn't mean to hurt you. You know, we thought it was your house. We thought you built it because you love us. Please, can we talk before things get worse? Worse. I wanted to laugh. They still didn't understand that the worst had already happened months ago, when they looked me in the eye, stripped away everything I'd built, and gave it to Lily like it was a birthday gift. That afternoon I decided to drive by the house one last time. When I pulled up to the driveway, the sight was unreal. Boxes were everywhere. Lily was sitting on the steps, crying into her phone. My father was arguing with someone. Probably the landlord. My mother stood quietly by the garden, the one I had paid to plant. It was surreal, watching it all from a distance. The house that had once been their pride now reduced to confusion and panic. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel joy either. Just an overwhelming sense of finality. As I stepped out of the car, Lily spotted me. Her expression changed from despair to fury. You did this, she yelled, storming toward me. You actually went through with it. You're heartless. I looked at her calmly. Heartless. You took my room, my space. You let them humiliate me in front of neighbors. You called me selfish for not wanting to share what I built. Tell me, Lily, when exactly did I become heartless? When I stopped funding your comfort. She blinked, her anger faltering. Mom rushed toward us. Allison, please. Don't make this worse. We'll fix it, okay? Just talk to the landlord, extend the lease, we'll pay back. Pay back? I laughed softly. Mom, you can't pay back respect. You can't buy trust. You can't repair years of emotional damage with rent money. Dad joined in, his voice rough. Enough of this moral nonsense. You deceived us. That's what you did. I turned to him. No, Dad. I protected myself. You're the ones who deceived me. Every time you pretended that love was conditional, that I had to keep proving I was worth being part of this family. For a moment he didn't reply. His shoulders sagged, his jaw tightening like he was swallowing words he didn't want to say. The landlord arrived a few minutes later. He nodded respectfully at me. Miss Allison, I've completed the final inspection. They'll need to vacate by the weekend. My father looked at me one last time, disbelief still in his eyes. You planned this all along, he muttered. I met his gaze. No, you planned it, the day you decided I didn't belong here anymore. Then I turned and walked away. For weeks, I didn't hear from them. I focused on my work, on rebuilding a life that wasn't centered around pleasing people who couldn't appreciate what I gave. But sometimes at night, I'd think about the silence that followed. The emptiness I knew they must have felt when the house, their house, was gone. Then one afternoon I got a call from an unknown number. It was Lily. Allison, she said quietly, her voice stripped of its usual arrogance. We moved into a small apartment. Mom isn't speaking much. Dad's been different. I just wanted to say. Don't, I interrupted gently. Don't apologize just because things changed. I want you to think about why they did. There was silence. Then she whispered, You really hurt them. I took a deep breath. No, Lily. Taught them. There's a difference. She didn't reply. And maybe for the first time she finally understood. Months later I saw my parents again. Unexpectedly. It was at a charity event hosted by one of my clients. They were sitting at the far end of the room, quieter, smaller somehow. When my mother saw me, her eyes filled with tears. Allison, she said softly as I approached. You look good. Thank you, I replied. Dad didn't speak for a while. Then in a low voice he said, We deserved what happened. Froze. That was something I never expected to hear. He sighed, looking older than I remembered. You did everything for us, and we treated you like a wallet. We made you feel like a guest in your own home. I'm sorry. I didn't know what to say. For the first time my father, the man who had always believed he was above apologies, actually meant it. Mom wiped her tears. We miss you, Allison. We know we can't undo what we did, but maybe we can start again. I nodded slowly. Maybe. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a beginning, one that finally felt real, not built on obligation or guilt. Later that night I drove home to my home. As the city lights blurred through my windshield, I thought about everything that had happened. The humiliation, the silence, the slow, deliberate justice. Revenge hadn't given me peace. What did was the strength I found in walking away, in reclaiming the dignity they'd stripped from me. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't destruction, it's evolution. And as I parked my car and stepped into my apartment, I whispered to myself, not in anger but in calm triumph. I never built them a house. I built my freedom.